Someone once said the best time to invest was yesterday, but the same person also said the second best time to invest is today. Congratulations on locating this video, because it means that you want to start your investment journey and you've come to the right place. Hi, welcome back to my YouTube channel. My name is Adireke Lawal. I'm a liquid practitioner and I major in capital market operations. What do we do on this channel? If this is your first time, we'll talk about what to invest in, where to invest, and most importantly, how to invest. As you would have seen from the title of this video and the thumbnail, this video is for beginners who wish to understand investing, the concept of investing, as simple as ABC. So let's get started. So what is investing? Investing is simply the concept of putting money into something with the expectation of a reward. In finance, we call this reward returns. So in simple terms, you are putting money into something with the expectation of getting something much bigger, much more than you invested. I think the best analogy to understand what investment really is planting a seed. So you dig the ground, you put the seed, hoping that it will germinate one day and bring forth fruits. But the farmer doesn't just plant a seed without knowing the kind of soil he's planting, or there are certain things he has to put into consideration. One is the kind of soil, the kind of seed, the season. So there are different factors that a farmer puts into consideration before deciding to plant. Also, after planting the seed into the soil, there are other things that he has to do, including watering, putting fertilizer such that the seed is able to germinate well. The same thing with investment. You don't just go into investing without a plan. So these are the factors, these are the considerations you need to look at before you start investing. So number one thing is that you cannot be in a hurry to invest. There is this popular saying that if you fail to plan, then you already plan to fail. Before investing, you have to consider your income. Your income must be sufficient to cover your monthly expenses before you can kick off putting aside excess for investing. So if your income is not sufficient to take care of your daily needs, then your priority at that point should be your income and not investing. Also, before investing, you must have what we call an emergency fund. An emergency fund, as the name implies, is simply a savings for emergencies. It's like a buffer for when anything unexpected comes up. Jumping into investments without considering your income or having an emergency fund is like putting the cart before the horse. And I will give you an example. I first started investing during my NYSC year, just before I went to camp, and I think I downloaded the Babu app and I was investing in the US stocks. Like everything I had, it was going into the US stock investments, and all of a sudden, deployment letter came out and I was thrown to Plateau State. I went to camp there, but I had in mind that I was going to redeploy. But where would the money from redeployment come from? I couldn't work in camp. I was doing my writing job. I couldn't work in camp. So I had to dig into my investment. So whether or not my stock had appreciated at the time, I was forced to sell. So imagine if I was on a loss streak, maybe something happened to the market and everything was red. I would have still sold at a loss because I had nothing to fall back on. So it is important to have an emergency fund. Essentially, having an emergency fund prevents you from forcefully dipping into your investment fund and breaking your target, because obviously you are invested to meet a certain goal. But what happens if an emergency arises? You are forced to take several steps backward, and then you have to start all over again to meet that particular target. One of the things you come to learn when you start investing is that time is of essence. When you start to invest, it's very much important to the result. So for instance, someone that started in their 20s putting away 10,000 naira monthly would have much more than someone who started in their 30s, even though that person is saving 20k monthly or 30k monthly. And that is where compound interest comes in. So time and compound interest, they go hand in hand. So let's assume you have your income ready, you have your emergency fund ready. What's next? That brings me to risk appetite. The next thing I'm going to talk about is risk appetite. You need to assess your risk appetite. How much risk can you afford to take? There are different types of investments and they have their risk level. You have stocks. Stock is said to have to be high risk. You have fixed income instrument, which is low risk. You have ETFs, which has also been described as low risk. So there are different kinds of investments and they have different level of risks ascribed to them. I'm going to leave a link in the description box for you to take a risk appetite test and Like, you can just know whether you have a low risk appetite or you have high risk appetite. That said, the result of the test will let you know the kind of investment you can start with as a beginner. So what are the various types of investments we have? We have stocks, we have fixed income instruments, you have commodities, and we have the last one, which is cryptocurrency. So for stocks and cryptocurrencies, they generally fall within the high risk category because their prices move up and down a multiple. So for instance, MTN stock, you might have gotten MTN stock when it was trading at 500 naira. Now it is trading at over 700 naira. That means you've already made your gain. But look at it another way. Buying at 500 naira, it could have fallen lower to maybe 200 or even 100 naira. So that is why we categorize this as high risk, because for stocks, you are basically buying into the profitability of a company, and whenever the profitability of that company is affected, it means that the stock price is also affected. In this case, if you bought the stock at a price that is unjustifiable by the company's current earnings, then you are sure to be on the negative side, because definitely the stock price will drop. So this takes me to my next point, which is to seek knowledge. The first rule of investment is do not invest in what you do not understand. If you think cryptocurrencies are technical, you do not understand the candlestick, this and that, then do not follow the crowd to invest in that simply because Bitcoin is doing numbers, this coin is doing numbers. Do not follow the crowd whatsoever if you do not understand the particular investment. There are so many learning resources on the internet. For instance, I made a video that simplifies all of these investments. So YouTube, for instance, is one place you can seek knowledge from on any kind of investments. But be careful, because as much as we have people who are willing to do the work, ready to dig out the truth, there are also people who put out content for the sake of content's sake. So you have to be able to sift through the false information and take your truth. You can also seek personal consultations with any of the reputable financial experts. We have different personal finance coaches on the internet. So do well to reach out to the reputable ones. Do know that this actually comes with a fee. Personal consultations are not free. If you want to reach out to me through any of the details in my description box. Lastly, before investing, you need to ask yourself why you're investing. You need to define your goals. It is very easy to stop midway when you do not have any investment goal or objective defined. That said, I always recommend people to divide their investment portfolio for two goals. One is the short-term goal for a particular purpose. The other is for long-term goal of retirement. Everybody knows that you cannot continue to work at the same rate into old age. So there is that retirement savings. If you are working 9 to 5, you have your pension, but you can also invest separately to augment that. If you're a freelancer, you have to think of something. You cannot work at the same rate into old age. So you have to have an investment portfolio for retirement. But the second one, which is the short-term investment portfolio, is usually for a particular purpose, maybe to invest in real estate, to invest in your children's education. So for a purpose other than retirement, basically. Having thought about the preliminary factors to consider before investing, now how do you start investing? Thanks to technology, we now have mobile applications that you can download to start investing. One is Bamboo, the second is Cowrywise. You also have CS Alpha by Cardinal Stone. You have several applications. You have Ladder, you have Economy, you have Piggyvest. So you have several applications thanks to technology. You can do this from the comfort of your own. But I have a video on how to invest in Bamboo, how to invest on the Bamboo app and on the Cowrywise application. On the Bamboo app, you can invest in both the Nigerian and the US stock market. You can also invest in Nigerian treasury bills. You can also convert your money to dollars on the application. On Cowrywise, you can save. You can also invest in Nigerian equities. On Get Equity, you have access to commercial papers and Ladder. Ladder, you also have access to commercial papers and think also equity. After invest, you have access to commercial papers and equity. If you want to invest in real estate, consider Cable or RiceVest. Also, Piggyvest allows you to invest in real estate and also some corporate debt notes. So the process across these applications are the same. They ask for your personal details, your next of kin information, your BVN. They ask for your address and try to confirm that. So basic KYC information is what is required. They would ordinarily also ask for your bank information because that is required for any withdrawal to be made. So be sure to use an account with your details to avoid stories that touch. Additionally, you'll be asked some anti-money laundering questions such as whether you are politically exposed or not. So if you're a politician, if you're a daughter, or you are related to any politician, you may be required to disclose that. Lastly, some platforms like Babu and Cowrywise goes further to ask you about your investment skill, whether you're a beginner, you're within the intermediate range, or you're already an expert. So this is inconsequential. It's just to help them help you. Basically, if you can read and write, the processes are usually very seamless. You're good to go. If you are thinking of using the Babu or Cowrywise app, I made a previous video detailing all the features on the application and how to navigate their platform seamlessly. The link is in my description box. This is the end of today's video. If you enjoyed this video, give us a thumbs up. Also comment down below any new thing you've learned, any question you wish to ask me, put it in the comment section. Also share to your loved ones. See you in my next video.